Hello. What's this? More ribbons? You might be thinking I have quite the ribbon fixation lately. And you might just be right. There's something about these little medals that have taken me in. While some of the ribbons do take no effort to get, a select few of the ribbons do take quite a bit of your soul to obtain. And by that, I mean the Battle Tower ribbons, or their counterparts in the different generations. But will the Battle Maison in this generation break me as much as the Battle Tower did in Brilliant Diamond? Let's find out. We skipped Sun and Moon for the ribbon challenge, mainly because, well, the 7th generation games only have 7 ribbons to get. Quite fitting to the generation number, but a bit of an underwhelming video to make from that. There are also the Sword and Shield games, but getting all the ribbons there would probably shave a year or more from my life. Before going into the game itself, I categorized the ribbons into 4. The contest ribbons, extra features ribbons, miscellaneous ribbons, and the battle facilities ribbons. In this case, there is only one battle facility in the form of the Battle Maison, so call it what you will. The contest ribbons are pretty straightforward. We have to win the Hoenn contests, and steal ourselves through the Lysia side story. Not saying the side story is bad, but it could feel a bit draggy when you're trying to speedrun your way for ribbon completion. The extra features ribbons mainly cover the ones we get from completing the super training and Ami features. I put the effort ribbon here because we automatically can get this ribbon once we get the training ribbon. And we get that by getting all the gold medals in the super training feature. I would assume by the time someone completes the training ribbon, they would usually have a Pokemon fully EV trained. The miscellaneous ribbons cover the story ribbons from the Game Freak mandated Yapper Lady that appear in most games, and the 3 Gorgeous, Royal, and Gorgeous Royal ribbons that we have to buy in the shop. These are the 3 expensive ribbons that first appeared in the 4th generation games. Of course, we can't forget the Hoenn Champion ribbon. This one we get for just completing the Elite Four for the first time. And finally, the Battle Maison ribbons. There are 2 this time around, instead of the 1 Battle Tower ribbon we had last time. We get the Skillful Battler ribbon once we defeat one of the Battle Maison heads, and the Expert Battler ribbon once we can defeat one of the heads in the Super Battlers category. So, Alpha Sapphire and its 23 ribbons. Here we go. Leave a comment, sub, and a like if you would be so kind. They greatly help with the channel. I was quite happy to be starting up Alpha Sapphire again. This is by far my favorite remake, and the nostalgia just hits hard every time I come back to Hoenn, both for the remake and the original. We got out of the truck, contemplated intentional negligence, chose a starter not out of our goodwill, and ended up with another Popo. This time is the Torchic. Look at this cutie patootie. We couldn't refuse the offer to battle May, battled May, and we finally set off on our journey. At this point, we could actually already complete one of our objectives for the ribbons. That is to get all the gold medals in the super training feature. I was loving this run, and the game, but I was completely blindsided by the true horror of Hoenn. Ugh, it's Wally. We couldn't actually start super training without going through this Wally sequence, so I feel like my hatred for Wally is completely justified. At least for this video. I didn't want to waste Popo's EVs for the super training at first, so we caught a Lotad to get through the super training levels. An hour and a half had passed, and Popo was already super trained and good to go. Ignore this minor special attack spread please, I thought this would help in the early game. My past self thought I would change this later with berries. My future self, in fact, would completely forget and did not change it. By early hour 2, Popo soldiered on and completed all the levels with gold medal standard. Look at all those stars. The ribbon requirement had been met, but we would have to go all the way to Dewford to actually get the ribbon. We saved the Devon Researcher, caught a Talo, and my obsession with super training continued as we maxed out the EVs for the Talo and Lotad. I really have no good reason for this. It was a half-baked reasoning between wanting to use this Pokemon for Battle Maison later, and not wanting to grind too much. Was this unnecessary? Absolutely. Did it feed the super training obsession? Absolutely. Lotad and Popo gathered some experience and evolved, and we steamrolled Roxanne with no discernible struggle. Eat dirt, school teacher. Devon parts recovered, Mr. Briny secured, and we arrived at Dewford by the end of the 4th hour. It took a while to find the NPC that would give out the ribbon, but we finally got our first ribbon of the challenge, the training ribbon. Brawly buckled in the presence of our tiny flying Pokemon, and we delivered the package to Steven Stone. Slayport was next, and it was more of the errands, meeting Captain Stern, Archie, and the ever so pushy Lysia. I spent a fair bit of time looking for a good Electrike after this, and we super trained it before moving on. Did it take a long time? Absolutely. Did it feed the obsession? Absolutely. Was this necessary? Absolutely not. The May battle at Route 110 was a breeze with the newly evolved Swellow, and our Lombre also stepped in the end to help. Upon arriving in Mauville, it's time for... Oh man. I think we can skip the Wally parts now. He contributes nothing to the ribbons.
Nothing.
Before battling Watson, we got another ribbon, the gorgeous ribbon. We can buy this off the store on the west side of Mauville for 10,000 Puka dollars. Hello, Editor Indutro here. So as you might have noticed, I didn't actually end up buying the ribbon in this part because you can see that I did not have enough money. I will be buying the ribbon much later in the video. This needed to be said so that the rest of the video makes sense. Thank you for your patience. Not long after, Watson was soundly beaten by Popo. I tried a power-up punch strat for the battle. It was quite surprising that he didn't faint considering I didn't bring a berry for the paralysis. Then we have the longest stretch in the game where the story doesn't really progress. North of Mauville, Route 112, 113, and Falarbor Town. I wasn't paying any attention to the story here, so when May went off to Meteor Falls for Professor Cosmo, I thought to myself, what did I miss? His wife looked really happy for having her husband kidnapped. We then beat Team Aqua at Meteor Falls and concluded our business. This part of the game doesn't really involve the ribbons, aside from progressing the story, so let's speed it up. We beat Archie at the crater of Mount Chimney, demolished Flannery, caught a Trapinch for a future discharge and earthquake combo for the battle Maison, super trained it, and headed to Petalburg with May. Popo evolved into a Blaziken before the gym battle with our father, and we proceeded to demolish said father who tends to neglect his wife. Actually no, Popo kinda got flatlined by the last locking. But that's not the point. As a Pokemon trainer, we have a civic duty to point out less than desirable domestic situations when we can. Just like this part of the game where we are forced to go back to Mauville with Wally. Next, we ran across Steven Rock for this Latias encounter, which played out to be a pretty significant event, seeing as we will be using the legendary Pokemon for the Battle Maison later. Did we super train it immediately? Absolutely. We had some more Team Aqua fun at the Weather Institute and demolished May just before Fortree City. We then met with Stephen Boulder again to progress the story, and promptly beat Winona with our Manectric and Latias. We beat the penultimate May rival battle, chased Team Aqua all the way to Mount Pyre, their hideout, and off to Moss Deep we go. The Tate and Liza fight was a joke as usual, and we were invited to Stephen Gravel's home. He tasked us with more world-saving business, so we found the underwater cave that led to Kyogre's private residence. The Orca went blub 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 after the orb fiasco, and we had to sit through this whole shebang at Zootopolis. It took a while, but my obsession with putting everything in Pokeballs finally paid off. We went back to Mauville to activate the new Mauville side quest, and we obtained the Relax ribbon on the way. We caught a Roselia somewhere along the way and trained it, and by that of course I mean more hours spent on super training. Was it fun? Absolutely not. Was it necessary? Absolutely not. Did it help feed the obsession? Absolutely yes. I didn't evolve this Roselia until he learned Petal Dance, so it had a bit of a hard time beating Wallace. In the end, Colopopo the Ludicolo had to step in and help resolve the battle. Moving right along. There were some things that we had to do before challenging the Elite Four, mainly going through Sea Mauville for the Ice Beam TM. This didn't take very long though, and we were quickly back in Evergrande City after that. Nothing to see here. I really wanted to write something interesting about the Elite Four challenge, but it was really a breeze, so I'll just put some vine booms to indicate we've beaten them. Beating Steven Pebble is probably the most tangible requirement to acquiring the Hoenn Champion ribbon, so I guess we can break down the fight for a bit. Manectric took out Steven's Skarmory after a couple of turns, and we pivoted out to Latias on Steven's Aggron, anticipating its Earthquake. Aggron would never be able to one-shot Latias, so we took it out with Grass Knot. I mistook Armaldo's typing for Cradley's typing here, and forgot Armaldo was Rock and Bug type. I really thought it was Rock and Grass for some reason. We switched out to Roserade and almost played the match like an imbecile, but we took down the Armaldo nonetheless. I decided to just sack the Roserade on the Claydol, and we finished off the Claydol with Colopopo the Ludicolo. Colopopo was never in any danger against the Cradley, and finally Steven Nugget's Metagross came out. From here on, it was just Popo's turn to finish the fight, which happened quite quickly. And there it was, the Hoenn League finished. We had to sit through the credits and the final May battle first though. But anyway, here's the ribbon. Oh god, the Delta episode. As much as I didn't want to finish the sequence because of its length, we had to eventually be able to access the Battle Resort Island. So, we went around Hoenn chasing Zinnia around, meeting some familiar faces along the way, including Stephen Grit. To think all of these started from a date promise with May. Setting aside the abridging and skipping around I'm doing for this video, I do think the Delta episode was a great addition to the remake. It really adds story depth and lore to the region, as well as the whole episode having a nice and challenging ending to it. In the middle of everything though, I decided to finally finish the Pokemon Army segment of the video. Pokemon Army was introduced in Generation 6 and was only featured in this generation. There are two things we can do in Pokemon Army to raise Pokemon affection, and that is to pet them repeatedly and quite aggressively, and give them these treats. We can get the treats from the minigames in Army itself, and you can choose from a couple. Personally, I would always stick with the puzzle, the heart one specifically. If you can get 4.5 stars repeatedly, you'll always get this pink treat with a cherry on top. I might be mistaken, but these give out the most hearts, 5 of them in total. We basically do this over and over again until we get max hearts, and it would take about 2 hours at most in total. If you're good at the puzzles, maybe you can do it in 1. We maxed Popo's affection and went back to finish the Delta episode. We beat Wallace's second form and beat Zinnia the final time. One of the highlights of this run would really be the Rayquaza battle, where we caught this sucker with 2 Pokeballs. This was insane. We Master Balled the Deoxys right after though. The whole Deoxys battle sequence was shorter than its intro cinematics. At the end of the 23rd hour, we can finally begin the true climb of this video's ribbon challenge. And, oh come on, who let Wally have this much screen time? We toured around the island for a bit, getting the footprints ribbon from this gentleman for Popo. On the same stretch, we went back to Slateport and got the effort ribbon. And then I spent what must have been around 20 minutes looking for the lady that gives out the best friends ribbon, only to find her inside the same room as the Yapper lady with the stories. Great. That felt really nice. In any case, we obtained the best friends ribbon for Popo. Alright then, it was time for the contests. We had to get it done someday. So, what's different between the contests here and the ones in Brilliant Diamond? Well, for one, the ORAS contest stuck true to its original roots more, and wasn't basically a discount rhythm game with only one button prompt. But it's still one of the simpler ones we can go through. To get the ribbons in this game, you'll have to complete the Master Rank contests, so it will take some time. However, you can pretty much breeze through the contests just by having your contest stats maxed out. To do that, you have to make Pokeblocks first, and making Pokeblocks are just laughably simple in comparison to the originals. We only need to mix and match the berries we get, and we didn't have to grow or scour for them to make enough to max the contest stats either. In just under 1 hour, you should be able to max them. And once they're maxed out, we're pretty much always ahead on the intro segments of the contest, leaving behind only the talent segment. For this segment, if you have 2 moves with fairly high appeals that you can switch to back and forth, acing the contests will be no problem at all. We did the coolness category first, getting Popo the coolness ribbon. Then Popo showed off his extreme beauty, and cleaned the beauty category next. Through these contests, I also found that some categories have moves that decreases hype, instead of just a move with no consequence. I'm not entirely clear about which move category goes against which, I'm pretty sure you can look this up, but I was able to clear all 5 Master Rank contests with no real difficulty, so I'm guessing it's not that important. By the end of the 27th hour, we were able to complete all 5 categories, bagging us all the contest ribbons, including the Twinkling Star ribbon. Remember the ribbons we couldn't buy before? Yeah, we're buying them now. Except for the most expensive one. And finally, the moment you've all been waiting for. Maybe not, but here comes the Battle Maison section anyway, for the 2 Battle Facility ribbons. First things first, we had to revamp our Discharge and Earthquake team a bit. We of course had the option of pairing Manectric and Flygon, but Manectric would get buried within 1 turn by Flygon's Earthquake. I deliberately wanted to keep Flygon instead of catching and raising a Garchomp, just to see if it's possible getting through the Battle Maison with a Flygon. We didn't have to search long for Flygon's partner, as I remembered we can catch a Thundurus in Alpha Sapphire. We got the cast form from the Weather Institute, and promptly soared to the sky on Latias, encountering the storm clouds where the Thundurus resided. It took a couple of tries to catch it, but we welcomed Thunpopo, the Thundurus, into the team, and super trained it. This time, it was absolutely necessary. Before putting the team to the test, we completed the O-Power side quest and bore witness to, 5 men entering 1 single man. I really don't know how to describe this better. And then it was time to challenge the Battle Maison. For the first ribbon, all we had to do was beat a Battle Maison head in any category, so we chose the double battles. To begin with, we went with Thundurus and Flygon, followed by Popo the Blaziken and the Ludicolo. It didn't matter much in the normal category, so we pretty much breezed 10 fights at first. I realized after this battle that Thundurus wasn't holding an item, so we had to look for a magnet somewhere. And it was located at the Trick House north of Slateport. So, we did almost the whole Trick House challenges. The magnet only appeared on the 6th challenge, so this did take a good chunk of time. We could have gone through the Trick House 2 more times to end it, but there wasn't really any point in doing that. We went back to the Battle Maison, and fought our way through 9 more battles before facing the Battle Shadow Lane. Eveline was the Chatelaine for the double battles, but her normal rank team wasn't anything to write home about. She opened with a Luminion and a Pachirisu, and they were easy pickings for our Discoic duo. The Primeape and Persian that followed after didn't really up the ante as well, but the Primeape did take out Thundurus with a Stone Edge. At this point, my team was quite solid. I opened with Thundurus and Flygon for the Discoic combo, and Popo and Latias would come out next to help round things up. With our victory over Battle Chatelaine and Eveline, we finally unlocked the Super Double Battles. Now here was where things got serious. We needed 50 consecutive victories. I was quite determined to win it with the team that I had, and honestly, it really felt possible. Of course, we had moments where I gaffed and just threw matches left and right, played like an imbecile, but it never felt hopeless. At least, it never felt as hopeless as it did in the Brilliant Diamond run. In that run, when I was still using a Rotom or Zapdos and Garchomp Discoic team, it came to a point where the run felt impossible with the team. The fact that I eventually caved and switched to a level 1 Endeavor Aron team really speaks a lot, I think. And maybe the fact that we can use multiple legendaries and Mega Evolution also helped a lot in the Battle Maison. In any case, I spent about 10 hours before I could finally face Eveline again, with that very same Thundurus and Flygon opening. If I recall correctly, I don't think it was spent purely on just battling. There were moments where I tried getting TMs and held items. There were stretches of the veteran and ace trainers with the legendaries, of course, and they were pretty tough. I wiped about 3 to 4 times on these trainers, resetting the run at 45 plus battles. Anyway, here comes Eveline with her full team of legendaries. She opened the battle with her Latios and Suicune, thankfully, so I immediately switched out Flygon for Popo. Thundurus went straight for the Suicune with a Thunderbolt, taking down the Water legendary. Popo tanked the Dragon Pulse well, and onwards we go to the next turn. I thought about what to do next for a while here. The nerves really build up during these matches. Eventually, I settled for a Thunderbolt at the Entei, which dealt decent damage with a crit, but Popo goes down from a Lesser Purge. Thundurus pulled off a godly dodge, avoiding Entei's Stone Edge. That could have been really bad. Next, Latias Mega Evolved to one-shot the Latios with the Dragon Pulse, and Thundurus safely finished off the Entei. And then we only had to dismantle the Raikou to get the next ribbon. I don't think I felt like the Raikou ever posed enough of a threat, so we kinda took it easy and set up a nasty plot on Thundurus while Latias pulled off the heavy work. With 2 Psychics, we successfully defeated Eveline and got the final Battle Facility ribbon. My heart was actually beating super fast at this point. I didn't want to relive the stress from the Battle Tower and the Sinnoh remakes. Upon walking outside, we got a statue erected for us and, oh, for God's sake, it's Wally. Now, we were left with only the rest of the yapping ribbons and the expensive ribbons. We would need a whopping 999,999 Pokédollars for the gorgeous royal ribbon, so we would need to gather quite the capital to proceed. Gathering money can be quite tricky in this game, but we worked something out. There is actually a nice rotation of trainers that we can battle in one go, and coupled with the prize money O-Power, they can yield quite the results. First off, this gentleman at Route 121. After defeating him, he would net us 30,000 Pokédollars on prize money level 1. Then we would fly to Route 104 and fight this Aroma lady for around 17,000 Pokédollars, and the rich boy just south of Petalburg Woods for about the same amount of money. You can do this all in one go before the effective prize money runs out, and at prize money level 1, it would give you somewhere north of 65,000 Pokédollars. I was able to go up to prize money level 2 on the O-Power, and the 3 battles would net us north of 80,000 Pokédollars instead. It could take a while for the trainers to want to do their rematches, so while waiting, I would usually go to Reporter Gabby and Cameraman Ty for the immediate rematches. They would always battle in these 3 spots, and the prize money is quite decent with the O-Power as well. I took my time with this, and the repetitive nature of this task felt really therapeutic. It took us around 3 hours, and we were finally able to buy the gorgeous royal ribbon for our final expensive ribbon. All we had to do left was wait for the day to change and collect the remaining story ribbons to close this challenge. And there we go, all 23 ribbons on our starter in Alpha Sapphire. It took me around 46 hours to complete, but I'm sure you can finish this a lot faster with proper planning. I did take my time with this. With that said, this might be my last ribbons video. The rest of the games don't look quite as enticing with their ribbon collection, with them mainly having very few ribbons to collect in the game itself and relying on transfer-only ribbons. It could work if I were planning a cross-generation Ribbon Master Pokemon, but that is very unlikely. Let me know in the comments below what types of videos you'd like to see next, and as always, take care.